So 1975, the Vietnam War ends, and a lot of Vietnamese people are seeking refuge in America, right? Now, you see the impact of the Vietnamese moving into Chinatown. David Tai is the creator of BTK, right? But he was originally a Flying Dragons member.
No, who said that? I mean, I've seen some channels on YouTube that said that he was a Flying Dragon member. David Dye was on Canal Street selling watches. He was never a gang member. He just had the gift of gab and the charisma to get all the Vietnamese people together.
But he wasn't affiliated with the Flying Dragons at all at that time?
No, I mean, he dealt with them, like spoke to them, associated with them. He's associated with all, the Gold Showers Flying, but he wasn't a member.
Okay, so he was not an official member, but
No, there were Vietnamese members. There were Vietnamese members in the Flying Dragons, but not David Dye.
Okay.
I mean, you could talk to some of the OGs and the Flying Dragons. They don't know David Dye. They as a member. No, not a member.
Because I think I probably saw the same documentary that you're talking about where they said that he was a member, he didn't feel like he was accepted, and they allowed him to make his own like separate gang and stuff like that.
Maybe they conveniently put David Dye's name in there, but there were Vietnamese members who didn't feel accepted. They did the dirty work, just like the Koreans. They had the Koreans I knew a Korean in the Flying Dragons, Pell Street during that time. They called themselves the Korean Flying Dragons, and they didn't felt accepted. Then they later transferred over to the KP, Korean Power.
Right. So David Tai, he had spent time in Hong Kong, and he knew people making fake watches, right? And he started to make people in Chinatown buy the fake watches.
Yeah, he made a lot of money with the fake watches. He seemed more like someone who knows how to make money. He had a nice racket, so he had the money to bring these kids together. But as a gangster, he wasn't respected as a gangster. His right hand man, Amigo. His right hand man.
Canal Boys was already a thing at the time, though, right?
Who?
The Canal Boys was already a thing at the time. When David Tai was around, or it started because of him?
Yes, Canal Boys started because of him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because of him. And also Amigo, his right-hand man. Amigo was the one who was respected. I mean, I hear Amigo's name more than David Dye.
Oh, wow. Okay. So at that time, though, a lot of the Vietnamese were being commissioned to do the shootings, like the violent crimes for like the Chinese gangs.
Yeah. In the Flying Dragons, maybe a few in the Gold Showers, but mostly the Flying Dragons. Yeah, there was a Burmese guy in the Flying Dragons who made a name for himself. And then the Vietnamese, they sent him out to do the dirty work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of unsolved cases in Chinatown.
Right.
Unsolved cold cases. And you're just talking about those 2-3 block radius. And you're talking about dozens of them. Dozens.
So the Canal Boys eventually become BTK, Born to Kill, right? And I interviewed my brother China Mac, and he said that when he was growing up, the Ghost Shadows and BTK were beefing. It's interesting that BTK ended up beefing with two of the biggest gangs in Chinatown that were rivals themselves, with the Flying Dragons and Ghost Shadows, right?
They wanted to make a name for themselves. They're more into making a name than making money. The Chinese gangs, they were into making money. Okay, because their name was already established. So when BTK came along, they wanted to make a lot of noise. And plenty of times, the olive branch was offered, a sit down was offered, but they turned it down. That's why it was so short lived, because if the Vietnamese maybe like think more like I guess expand their horizons and think like, you know what, the Chinese at that time the Chinese were making so much money. Think about Onion Head was pulling in millions. The guy was bringing in his contacts were bringing in $1 billion in heroin. You got like 70-80% of heroin coming into this country was going to those triads. They, Chinatown was flush with money. They didn't care if they lost Canal Street, a piece of Canal Street to the Vietnamese Canal Boys. They didn't care. It's okay, you can have it, but let's stop the war. Let's stop, all this violence, shootings, and killing, where people are getting caught in the crossfire. You can have a tourist that was killed in the crossfire between
right, the Filipino girl, right? She died in the car. She got shot, and that caused a lot of issues.
That one, yes. So they wanted a sit down, but David Dye turned it down.
Right. There was the situation that upset Benny Ong, right? AKA Uncle Seven, who is known as the godfather of Chinatown. He wanted to sit down with David Tai, and David Tai refused.
Yes. See, Uncle Seven, he was like the godfather of Chinatown. He was associated with the Hip Sing Tong Association, which was affiliated with the Flying Dragons. But even though he was affiliated with the Flying Dragons under different Tong Association, as opposed to the On Leong Tong Association, which was with the Gold Shadows, and then the Dong'an Association with the Dong'an, and he was respected by the gang members, all the gang members.
He's respected by everybody.
Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Because he did his time, and back then, the word in the street was he didn't do it, but he took the rap for somebody. So that's why he was respected.
Now, Uncle Seven, he was the godfather of Michael Chen, the scientist. Is that right?
Yes, he was the godfather to the scientists. Yeah, in the newspaper, they call him the professor. In the streets, we call him the scientist. For Hawkeye.
And is Michael, is he the founder of the Flying Dragons, or just one of the biggest leaders to be known?
Michael Chen, yeah, he's the founder of the Flying Dragons. He's first generation.
Now, there was a shooting that happened at Winnie's Bar, right? Was that before the fireworks incident and the bombing of the police van, or that happened?
It was around that time.
Around the same time?
All that chaos was around that time. It was all around that time. The scientist wasn't around that by then. The scientist was gone. The scientist got killed around 83.
Okay.
Yeah, the Flying Dragons were making a lot of noise back then, but they got away with a lot of stuff. The scientist, even though he was the leader, he went out and did things on his own. He didn't need them. No, I mean, he has some of his soldiers though, but he's the type who go out there and do it on his own. I mean, he had a good friend by the name of we'll call him Sentry Egg. Like that guy was like the hitman for the Flying Dragons. His name was heard was known in the streets. Yeah, he did a lot of shootings. One of them was in a pool hall in Queens. No, not a pool hall, a bowling alley. Yeah, it was a bowling alley. It was the scientist and Sentry Egg. They killed 2 Korean kids in the bowling alley. The scientist is dead now, so I guess I could talk about it. And Sentry Egg, he's not in this country anymore, so I could talk about it, I guess. And but the case went nowhere because I spoke to the case detective. They didn't have enough evidence to pin it on them. They know they did it, but they just so many years ago they didn't have the evidence. What happened is the case detective I spoke to, His name is Neil Moriello. He's also on my. I interviewed him on my channel as well. He told me that they knew it was them. They left their bowling ball at the scene of the crime, and the bowling ball had the scientist's initial on it. But that wasn't enough to pin him to the murder. So it's still a cold case.
Were the Korean kids from KP, or this wasn't the same time?
This wasn't the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, but it could have been, like I said on my previous episodes. It's all about respect. Back then, a lot of these shootings were over nonsense. Over you looking at me in a disrespectful way. People used to get killed by stepping on someone's sneakers.
Right.
A lot of the killings were over nonsense.